everybody. Welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com.
Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm Eric here in Medellin, Colombia with AJ, and today we are going to be talking a little bit about the American Express Platinum and also some of the other high annual fee cards, give you guys a breakdown of the pros and cons of each card, as well as some big news with some refreshing of the benefits by American Express, new updates for both the personal and the business version. And we also have a huge sign-up bonus for the Amex Business Platinum, albeit with a really high spend. So we're going to jump into that at the end of the episode. We've also got news and updates from around the points and miles world. And show notes for today's episode are going to be at abroaders.com/platinum.
First thing we've got is Delta discounting award flights between the U.S. and Japan. Last week, we reported that there are some deals from Minneapolis to the new airport in Tokyo. And that is not just a thing in Minneapolis. There's a lot of really good deals from the US to Japan. The couple things you need to know are you got to book by October 13th, and then the travel is going to be between October 29th and December 7th.
Yeah, super good deal. I mean, 25,000 points to Japan is an amazing deal. But the big news is that this is wide open with Delta availability, which is rare. So they do this crappy pricing where they increase the cost of the award tickets based on how many they think they're going to sell. They're much better at that price discrimination. So not only is it cheaper than normal, I believe the normal price is $32.5.
Yes.
And so it's down to $25. You're already saving. But the big deal is there's tons of seats at the saver level for the Haneda route. And so, like you said, it's not just Minneapolis, it's almost all of the U.S. airports going to Haneda.
Brilliant flight. Low tax and fees as well.
Yeah, it's like $5.
$5.60.
Super amazing. So speaking of Delta's tendency to price awards at a higher rate, we got some scary news that seemed to also go away or at least be corrected temporarily. So we don't really know exactly what to make of this, but Delta started pricing Virgin Atlantic's partner awards in the same way that they price awards on their own metal. So until last week, Delta and all of the other major programs generally will charge higher prices for their own flights when they think they're going to sell all the tickets. But if partner flights are available, they're always at the saver level or the cheapest cost in points. And so what we saw last week was that Delta was actually using variable award pricing for Virgin Atlantic. Now, this seems to have been pulled down. So in other words, the minimum price normally for business class on Virgin Atlantic is $62.5 from the US to Europe. And so that's what you should expect any Virgin flight to price at. And last week, we saw pricing at 80,000 points. We saw pricing at 90,000 points one way. So that seems to have disappeared. It looks like it's back to normal. And we really don't know whether this was a glitch or something that maybe somebody rolled out too soon, accidentally pressed publish or whatever, rolled that out live. I think the big deal is that if this turns out to be the case, it could be groundbreaking. Lots of the other airlines have followed Delta. So we could see more anytime pricing for partner airlines across the board. That said, I wouldn't expect this to change super quickly. We'll see what happens, but hopefully no need to hit the panic button yet. Glad to see that disappeared relatively quickly. And I guess we'll see what happens.
Next thing is based on a really good blog post by the Frequent Miler on are Sapphire Reserve points really worth 1.5 cents each towards flights? And this is kind of a tricky one to answer, but the long story short is that it really depends on what the prices are through Chase's portal. So Chase has been known to have some inconsistent pricing, sometimes better than average deals, and other times it's not as competitive. You're going to actually see a price that's much higher than if you look somewhere else like Kayak or Orbit. So the thing you need to be conscious of if you're going to redeem your Chase Sapphire Reserve points through the portal is to make sure that the list price of your flight or your hotel is actually a competitive price. And if so, then you're going to be able to redeem at 1.5 cents. But if the hotel you're looking at is an extra $50 a night from what you'd see on Orbitz, then your actual real redemption value is going to be deflated.
Yeah, definitely an interesting situation. We're going to actually talk more when we get into the details about the Amex Platinum and talk a little bit more about how you can use the pay with points features with all of the premium cards. But definitely interesting. You got to watch those prices, make sure that the portal is giving you something fair. So next up, we've got a bonus to earn some Avios. And this is a very quick one to do, assuming you qualify. So basically, British Airways Avios is offering 1,000 Avios bonus if you transfer in points from a partner that you've not previously used in the last year. And so, as you probably know, Avios can earn points by transfer from Chase. They can earn points by transfer from American Express. And there's also some hotel programs like Starwood Preferred Guests, etc. So there's a lot of ways to get British Airways points. And if you haven't used one of those ways, it only takes one, within the last 12 months, you can get an extra 1,000 bonus points. So the way to do this, our situation, we had done a couple of transfers recently from Chase. They obviously have the best ratio at 1-to-1. Amex currently has the best ratio with their bonus, which is going away pretty quick. But we hadn't done any transfers from Starwood. And so I jumped in and transferred 1,000 Starwood points over to, actually I had to transfer 1,500. I thought it was going to be 1,000 minimum, but it's actually 1,500 minimum transfer. The one benefit here is if you happen to be a Marriott Platinum or a SPG Platinum, you can actually transfer just 1 star point, and that would trigger the 1,000 point bonus. So if you're an elite, this is a no-brainer, super easy. Transfer 1 star point over, and you're going to get a bonus 1,000 Avios. Now, if you don't, the minimum for transfers from Amex is 1,000 and Chase is 1,000. And if you don't have any status, transfers from SPG is 1,500. So definitely a good deal. It takes about 30 seconds to do. And we've got a link in the show notes for the page on the Avios website with the promotion, and also a direct link to where you can transfer with SPG, Amex, or Chase. I think the last thing to be aware of is just it's kind of rare that you'd be counting on these last 1,000 points, but the bonus is not going to post right away. In fact, it's going to be after the promo is over. I believe the deadline to take advantage of this promo is sometime in November, I want to say. But the points are not going to post probably until January, says Avios. So for what it's worth, great to grab some extra points, but not going to be useful right away to top up the balance for an urgent redemption.
Next one we've got is AA reduced mileage awards for October 2016 through January 2017. So who qualifies for this are people that have Barclays or Citi cards that earn AA points. And the key takeaway here is you're going to get deals on flights within the US and to and from Canada. And these flights are going to be anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 points when you consider the 10% rebate that you'll get using those cards that offer the rebate.
Yeah, and the last thing here, so these reduced mileage awards, basically they're just giving you a discount. And by the way, the reduced mileage award is in addition to the 10% rebate. So if you've got a card that gets 10% points back, that's bonus on top. So this is just cheaper mileage prices, right? If it costs $12,500, you get a $5,000 discount. It costs $7,500. But the key thing here is you can't do it online. So you do need to call, and that's how you book these awards. You should be able to get the phone fee waived. American does charge a phone booking fee, so make sure you ask them to waive that because reduced mileage awards cannot be booked through the website. And if they resist, go for a supervisor because definitely we got a lot of evidence that they do waive that fee for this. But yeah, it's different destinations, and you can look up the full list. We've got a link in the show notes. So if this applies to anywhere you're traveling, hopefully you can get a nice little discount. Next up, we have a award availability alert. And this is a good one because it can be tricky to get availability across the Atlantic. Europe's obviously a pretty popular destination, and LOT Airlines, which is the Polish national airline, has just announced a new route to LAX from Warsaw. That's going to be operated on their 787-8. It's starting next April, so April of 2017. And currently, they've just opened up the booking calendar here, and there's 2 business class award tickets available on pretty much all of the dates. So this is a pretty awesome deal for 2 reasons. One, it's just hard to get availability from the West Coast to Europe in a lot of cases. And so having a direct flight from LA to Warsaw, that's a nice bonus. And secondly, LOT does not add fuel surcharges like a lot of the other Star Alliance airlines. So for business class one way, you're looking at between 57,500 miles and 70,000 miles with the major programs. So Air Canada's the cheapest, all the way with Avianca, Singapore, and United working their way up towards 70,000. The other thing just to make you aware of is if you can't make the LOT ticket work, there's also a lot of really good availability from LAX to Vienna on Austrian Airlines. And this really illustrates the contrast here. With LOT, on a business class ticket, you're probably looking at $50 to $100 max in taxes and fees. With Austrian, you're looking at fuel surcharges in the $400 to $500 range. So it's a lot more expensive, just depending on which airline you book. And you're going to want to look for those lot business class tickets for next spring and early summer.
Next up, we've got 3 airfare-related Amex offers worth mentioning. There's also a link in the show notes with analysis on the 7 hotel Amex offers. There's one for car limo service and some other things that you can check out in the show notes. But the 3 we're going to focus on, the first is get 20,000 points for spending $1,000 with ANA. So this is a targeted Amex offer, not available for all cards. It's valid through November 26th, and the deal works. You spend $1,000 on ANA, and you get 20,000 Amex membership rewards. So these points are worth between $400 and $500, depending on exactly how you value them. So it's effectively a 40 to 50% discount on your ANA flight. So one thing to note is that you do not need to spend $1,000 in a single transaction. It's just an aggregate spending $1,000 on ANA. So for any listeners that are in Japan, this could be a really viable offer if you qualify for it. Next one is Aerolíneas Argentinas. You spend $500, you get $100 back. This expires November 15th. And the final one is with Virgin Atlantic. You spend $1,000, you get $200 back, and this one expires on November 6th.
Awesome. Gotta love those Amex offers. I think there's a pretty high probability that folks are going to get targeted. I checked out our accounts. We have about 5 Amex accounts across the board, and all of them were targeted for this. Okay. Yeah. So Personal Platinum was targeted, Business Gold was targeted, Everyday Preferred was targeted. So I think there's a really good chance if you've got airfare coming up on Aerolíneas Argentinas or on ANA or on Virgin Atlantic.
Discount.
Yeah, really good deal. Okay, so next up, we've got a targeted spending incentive with the Amex SPG card. So this is not available for everybody, and once again, this was not available for us, but I do think this is pretty widespread. There's been a lot of talk about it on the blogs. So if you have the SPG personal card, you can earn an extra 5,000 points after an additional 5,000 spend. So if you're not working on other spending requirements for other sign-up bonuses, this could be a good deal. You need to enroll by October 31st, happy Halloween, and spend that 5,000 by December 31st. So by the way, no spend counts until after enrollment. So if you're going to go for it, make sure you enroll right away. Obviously, then all of your spend after that time will count. And for the business card, pretty similar. You get an extra 5,000 points after spending an extra $5,000. However, you can also earn an additional 5,000 spend for the next 5,000. So total of 10,000 points on the table for 10,000 spend with the business card. A little bit of extra incentive there if you've got a lot of spend and you're not working on sign-up bonuses. And for the business card, the dates are different. You need to enroll by December 15th and also spend by December 15th. So ideally, again, enroll as soon as possible, and you've got till the 15th of December with the business card, and you've got until the 31st of December with the personal card.
This next deal is something Eric and I are really excited about. It's a promotion between Air France Flying Blue and Point Sound. So you earn 12,000 Flying Blue points. These are bonus points if you book 2 nights of a hotel stay through Point Sound. And so how this is going to work for Eric and I did a little bit of research and I found a pretty nice hotel in Medellin for $32 a night. So the way that this works is we're each going to book 2 nights at this place in Medellin. We're each going to pay $64, and we're each going to get that 12,000 mile bonus for Flying Blue. And we also earn a couple points just for booking the hotel through Point Sound. So we're each going to get 12,400. So you get the 12,000 bonus points plus whatever points you'd get for booking through Point Sound. A couple things to mention here is that this is for first-time users. So if you've booked through Point Sound before, you're going to be eligible for this. And just a reference point for you, if you value these Air France miles at 2 cents per point, 12,000 is worth $240. So we're each going to spend $64 to get 12,400. So a really good deal. Get to check out another part of the city because I think this hotel's on like the other side of town. So it'll be a pretty cool experience. Game the system for some points.
Yeah, definitely worth it. I think the only thing you got to worry about is if you're looking for a super cheap hotel night, you do actually have to check in. Right. So you can't like go find a nice Thailand hotel if you're based in the US and get a $10 a night hotel. We are.
I spot checked some places in Brazil and just was curious.
It's tricky. Good deal. Yeah. So hopefully this will be beneficial to some of you guys out there. Next up, we have a 50% discount off of KrisFlyer bookings for Silk Air. So Silk Air is like their American Eagle or United Express. It's like the smaller version where they don't pay the pilots as much or whatever. Regional jet. That's a nicer way to say it. However, they have a lot of destinations out of Singapore, and so it's a great way to get around Asia, and 50% is a big discount on award tickets. So this one is coming up right away. You got to book by October 16th and travel by November 15th. So it's a narrow window, but wanted to mention it in case anybody can take advantage. And we've got a link to the Silk Air destinations in the show notes for you to check out, see if this might work for you. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for our regular news. But every week when we're doing all of this research and looking for the best deals, we always come across some interesting news that is fun to share and worth talking about. So today for our crazy traveler and random news stories, first up we have Hawaiian Airlines has just issued a statement clarifying why they've been weighing passengers traveling to American Samoa. And I just thought this was super interesting. I'm always really interested in how the actual business of airlines works and how there's a ton of logistics and complexity to planning routes. And basically what happened is that Hawaiian Airlines on their route from Honolulu to American Samoa was burning way more fuel than they expected. And so they were trying to first of all, eliminate other reasons like wind or weather or routing. And they basically eliminated everything else and concluded that the average passenger on this flight was a little bit fatter than they had anticipated. And so for 6 months, they at the airport were weighing all passengers and their luggage. And they concluded that, in fact, they were correct and that they had underestimated significantly the weight for the route. And so I just thought the conclusion was pretty interesting. What they decided to do is basically make sure that every row has at least one empty seat or has one seat occupied by a 13-year-old or under. So just basically trying to compensate for that weight problem.
I mean, that's a really big issue. I've watched way too many shows on air crash investigations, and when you get the weight calculation off, I mean, that's a really big deal because the way that the pilots take off in a plane, it's based on the weight. And based on the weight, tells you at what speed they'll call what's rolling back when they pull up to get the lift from all the thrust. And if you got that calculation wrong, you're talking about different runway length needed. You're talking about different speed you're rolling up on. It can get really, really messy.
Yeah, I mean, super interesting story, and I think the way Hawaiian handled it was pretty good because it seems like it was a little bit of a sensitive issue. Obviously, if people in fact on that flight are slightly overweight on average, and they're forcing them through this weighing process for 6 months. So interesting scenario, but looks like Hawaii did a nice job with their communications and explaining what happened and why the policy had to be there. So
they were right though. So I mean, if you're going to do something like that, you
want to be right. So yeah, it looks like they were correct and they made an adjustment. So you probably won't be weighed, at least in the near future, for that American Samoa to Honolulu route.
Man, this is actually a pretty good segue for us to get into our final piece of crazy traveler and random news. So we're talking about Hawaii. We're talking about a place that's tropical. These beaches, this blue, warm water. We got something funny going on with Antarctica. There's a pretty interesting promotion with SPG with Antarctica, yeah?
Yeah. So first of all, Antarctica is a place that I really want to go. And we've had a lot of questions over the last 2 years, at least relative to like how many people actually go to Antarctica, asking about whether it's possible to do it with miles. And in general, the answer is not really. It's possible to get close. You can get to Ushuaia, Argentina. You can get to Punta Arenas, Chile. And, so those types of flights can be done with miles, but it's generally a charter flight going to Antarctica. And so we came across a really cool offer. And unfortunately, the bidding for this offer, so this was originally actually an SPG excursion where they were allowing you to bid Starwood Preferred Guest Points for this experience. The bidding window has closed, and to be totally honest, the amount of miles that I think would have won this bid was pretty high, I think in like the 600,000, 700,000 range. But the bidding was for an expedition through National Geographic. It's for a 10-day tour or a 14-day excursion, but effectively like 5 to 10 days either in the ocean around Antarctica or hiking on Antarctica. It looks amazing. Now, before you jump over to the website, we do have the link in the show notes. If you want to buy this excursion, it is definitely for sale. It's also pretty expensive. Minimum price is about $13,000 per person. However, this is trip of a lifetime material. And something that if I have money in the future, I'm definitely going to be paying, whatever it takes to be able to explore.
It's a pretty special place, man. There's not that many places that are just so untouched and so natural and so raw. And that'd be intense. I remember last year in Brazil running into a guy that had spent some time in Antarctica, and it was it's a different planet, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to check it out, there's tons of details on the itinerary. Basically, your airfare is included, fortunately. So if you spend the $13,000, they're going to fly you down to either Ushuaia, Argentina, which is one of the most southern cities in the world, or to Punta Arenas, Chile, and then pick you up on the boat from there and cruise over to Antarctica. So I think pretty awesome. I would love to hear if we got any listeners out there that are financially in a position and adventurously in a position to pull the trigger. We'd love to hear from you guys on how this Antarctic excursion goes. But super cool, man. I love seeing that this type of experience is out there. And apologies for not getting to you guys earlier. I don't know how long the bidding was up. I mean, like I said, it's not an amazing deal with points because I think it was a lot of star points that won the trip. Mm-hmm. But super cool that Starwood is at least making that effort to put out those sort of aspirational type adventures.
And there's enough people out there. I bet you the person that bid those 600,000 points in their mind got a great deal, because for all we know, they've got a small business that's really successful and they print a couple million SPG points a year, and they've been sitting on, it's not out of the question that somebody had a few million and what the hell, this is a great redemption.
I mean, not mentioning names, but we've got a few people that we booked for that have 8 million star points. There are people that have tons of them. And by the way, that's not a terrible valuation. $600,000 for a $13,000 trip.
No,
it's
it's
2 cents
two.
a point.
Yeah.
So you're doing okay. And last but not least, before getting into the Amex Platinum discussion, we've got one correction from last week. We talked about Fabio's question about his Starwood Preferred Guest account and how he could avoid having those points expired. And I suggested that Fabio take advantage of the Uber SPG promotion, where you link your accounts and you get 1 star point for every dollar spent on Uber. However, Fabio wrote back and pointed out that you actually have to have a Starwood Preferred Guest stay during that year before the bonus kicks in. So again, you can always transfer a point. You can always sign up for a magazine subscription to extend the life of your points or stay at a hotel. But if you've already stayed at an SPG hotel this year, then you're going to be able to get 1 star point per dollar spent on Uber. And we got the link in the show notes again this week so that you can link up those accounts and take advantage. All right, time to get to the core content on Amex Platinum. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the American Express Platinum Business and Personal Card. This has been in the news quite a bit lately thanks to some updates to the benefits for both versions of the card and a big new sign-up offer on the business version. So for those of you that have one or both versions of the Platinum card, we're going to break down the key factors in your decision about whether to keep it ongoing basis, whether it's worth paying that annual fee, and also when it makes sense to use the card for purchases. If you have never had the card, hopefully this will help you decide if the current sign-up offer for the business card is for you, and also give you a nice solid point of comparison with some of the other high-fee annual cards like the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which also has a 100,000 point sign-up currently, and the Citi Prestige card. So to start out, let's talk a little bit about the Amex Personal Platinum version.
So the current offer for the Amex Personal Platinum card is 40,000 membership reward points after spending $3,000 in the first 90 days. And a couple things to note, starting October 6th, you're going to get 5x membership rewards points on airfare booked directly with airlines or through Amex Travel. And this bonus applies to the personal Amex only. So we're going to touch on the business card later. This is for the personal card only. And for your reference against those other high annual fee cards Eric referenced, which would be the Chase Sapphire Reserve card and the Citi Prestige card, is Chase Sapphire Reserve, you get 3x on airfare, and the Citi Prestige, you get 3x on airfare as well. So the Amex Personal Platinum right now has an advantage with 5x.
So basically, if you're considering buying airfare, the trade-off here is that, let's say an average economy ticket internationally is about $1,000. So if you use the membership rewards earning Amex Platinum personal version, you're going to get an extra 2 points per dollar spent compared to the other premium cards from Chase and Citi. So an extra 2,000 membership reward points on your average ticket. At our current valuations, those extra 2,000 points are maybe worth about $50. And so I think the key thing here is that there's a bit of a trade-off with the insurance benefits that come when you purchase travel. So as you may remember from previous conversations we've had, most rewards credit cards offer included insurance when you pay some or all of the airfare using your credit card. And so the problem with the Amex Platinum Personal Card is that the travel protections are not as robust as they are for the City Prestige and for the Sapphire Reserve Card. And so you're essentially trading off earning an extra $50 worth of points and potentially sacrificing some compensation if something goes wrong with your travel plans, which you and I have had happen quite recently with our canceled Southwest flight and a couple of other delays that have come up. So let me give you a real quick rundown of the Prestige and the Sapphire insurance, and then we'll explain how it's different from the Amex. So with the Chase Sapphire Reserve, you get cancellation and interruption insurance, meaning if something big happens, maybe somebody in your family gets sick or you get sick and you're not able to take the trip, all your non-reimbursable expenses should be covered by the card up to $10,000. So that includes like prepaid tours, hotel reservations, things like that. Both the City Prestige and the Sapphire Reserve have that benefit, as does the Amex Personal Platinum Card. So that coverage is basically the same across all three. The other benefits are the ones that tend to come up more often. It's kind of unlikely to have the whole trip get canceled, but a delay that either delays your baggage or forces you into an overnight at a hotel, that happens quite a bit more often. And so that's where the Prestige and the Sapphire Reserve set themselves apart. So the Reserve is probably the best coverage. You get $100 per day if your bag is delayed more than 6 hours. And if your bag's lost, you've got $3,000 in coverage per passenger. Although there are some exclusions, I think jewelry and things that shouldn't be in a checked bag are potentially not going to be covered. And then the trip delay insurance is $500 per ticket if you're forced to wait more than 6 hours or an overnight. So that's really big if you need to book a hotel. And that coverage is not available with the Amex Platinum. So that's really, I think, the core area that you're giving up by buying airfare with the Amex Platinum. You're getting the extra 2x points, 5x instead of 3x, but you're giving up $500 in coverage if you need to have a forced overnight at a hotel and some potential baggage insurance. The last thing I wanted to mention with the breakdown between these three high fee cards is that the City Prestige card, you really need to be extra careful and just double check the terms and conditions, because some of the benefits are not available in full if you don't pay the full airfare with the card. And so the situation where this comes up most often is if you're paying taxes and fees on an award ticket. Mm-hmm. So for example, with the Sapphire Reserve, the coverage is not restricted. If you pay $3 in taxes and fees on the card for a $1,000 plane ticket that you're using points for, you're covered. All the coverage we talked about is in place. With the City Prestige, there are some of these benefits that are only available up to the amount that you actually paid. So if you paid $50 in taxes and fees, you may only get $50 in compensation if the trip is canceled or something like that. So that's something you definitely want to look into with Citibank. And again, Amex doesn't have the baggage delay, the lost baggage, or the trip delay where you're forced to overnight. So there's a few trade-offs there with the insurance benefits.
So now on to the Amex Business Platinum. This one is an exciting offer because it is much higher than the normal 40,000 points. It has currently got a sign-up bonus of 100,000 points, but the spend is fairly high. It's $15,000. So the way this bonus works is you're going to get 50,000 bonus points after your first $5,000 of spend, and then you're going to get another 50,000 points after an additional $10,000 to spend. So if you want to look at this as a 100-point sign-up bonus, you're going to have to spend $15,000 within 90 days. Amex has also updated the benefits for this card, so here's what's new. The first one is earn 1.5x membership rewards points per dollar on any purchase over $5,000, so only big purchases.
Second one, and this is a big one, is you get 50% of membership rewards points back when you use Pay with Points through Amex Travel to book a flight. And the one caveat here is that's with your selected airline. So this is the same airline that you're picking your $200 annual fee credit. So you get one airline, not all airlines, with this particular benefit. The second benefit is that you earn 50% of your membership rewards back when you use Pay with Points through Amex Travel to book a flight with your selected airline. So remember, with Amex, you get to pick one airline. It can be basically any major airline. And for that airline, you're going to get $200 in airline fee credits. That was the original benefit. That's all you got, was basically if you pick Delta, you get $200 back when you get charged baggage fees and other fees with Delta. However, now with your selected airline, if you use Pay with Points, you're going to get a 50% rebate with that selected airline for any ticket you book.
And the one exception to that 50% bonus is if you book in business or first class, it does not have to be with your selected airline. This applies with any airline. If you use the membership rewards Pay with Points, if it's business or first class, you will get your 50% membership rewards back. So let's take a look at this 1.5x points on big purchases. As I mentioned before, any purchase over $5,000. So you buy something over $5,000 with the Amex Platinum Business Card, you're going to get 1.5x points. But it is important to also know that the Amex Everyday Preferred Card offers 50% points bonus when you make at least 30 transactions per billing cycle. So if you make your 30 transactions or more, you could put both small and the large charges, where with the Platinum, the way that this is currently working, it's only on charges over $5,000. So if you do have a high volume of transactions, you're going to earn the same amount of points, or you'd actually earn more points if you're using the Amex Everyday Preferred Card, because you're going to get 50% on all of your points you earn throughout the course of the month, as long as you make those 30 transactions. So the new Platinum benefit of 1.5x membership rewards is only a big deal if you can't get the Amex Everyday Preferred and you're not going to be making 30 transactions per month.
Right on. So the next big benefit, and I think this one's a little bit more significant because of what AJ said with the Everyday Preferred sort of being equivalent, at least for people that make a bunch of transactions, to the Amex Platinum's new benefit. But the 50% membership rewards back is kind of a big deal. So I wanted to run through a couple of examples here. To give you a baseline here, Pay with Points typically gives you about 1 cent per point towards paid airfare. And you want to compare that with our valuation of membership rewards at around 2.5 cents per point. So typically, if you're transferring to one of the partners, Singapore, Air France Flying Blue, Delta, a lot of times, at least on average, you're probably going to be getting about 2.5 cents per point towards travel. So just getting 1 cent per point is probably not a very good deal. However, with the 50% rebate, you're now effectively getting 2 cents per point, right? If it costs 100,000 miles and you get 50,000 back, it effectively is only costing you 50,000 miles. The other Pay with Points cards, just for a little bit of comparison, a lot of these premium cards, and we talked about the Prestige and the Reserve a second ago, those both currently have some sort of Pay with Points functionality as well. So with the City Prestige, you currently get 1.6 cents per point towards paid airfare with American Airlines. However, that is a benefit they've announced is going to be removed. So if you already have the Prestige card, you've got that benefit through July of 2017. But if you're just getting it now, I believe that benefit will not be available for new account signups. With the Sapphire Reserve, you get 1.5 cents towards the purchase of airfare purchased through Chase's travel portal. So in this case, you're just going to be getting, any airline as long as you can find it through the Chase portal. And as we mentioned previously in the show, this is not necessarily exactly perfect because Chase might not be giving you the same points, the same prices. However, so with the benefit of using your Pay with Points, one of the big things to keep in mind is that you also earn points on the flight when you use Pay with Points. So in other words, if you transfer to a partner airline like Air France, you're redeeming miles, you pay the taxes and fees, but you don't earn any miles for flying and you don't earn any elite qualifying status. This Pay with Points is different because Amex is effectively buying your airfare for you and just charging you points. So I want to break down two different examples of how this would actually work out and try and give you a nice point of comparison about whether it's better to use your Pay with Points feature and get the 50% rebate that's now available with the Business Platinum card, or whether it would be worth actually transferring those miles out to a partner program and using the points that way.
The first example we've got here is an economy round trip between New York and Paris. Let's say that it's on Delta Airlines and this round trip ticket cost $850. So if you're using your Pay with Points through Amex, this would normally cost 84,900 points. However, with the Amex Biz Platinum 50% rebate, this is going to cost you 42,450 points. If you're using Delta miles, in the best case scenario, it's going to be 30,000 points each way, so 60,000 in total, and you're also going to pay between $50 to $100 in taxes and fees. So total savings would be about $800 for that. However, if you buy the ticket through Amex Travel you're going to get that entire flight for 42,450 Amex points, no taxes and fees, and you're also going to earn about 4,200. The exact number is 4,242 miles if you credit those points to Delta, because you get to earn points when you do the Amex Pay with Points. So to compare these two, in the best case scenario with Delta, you're going to spend 60,000 points, $5,200 in taxes and fees for that flight. Or through Amex in this scenario, you're going to spend 42,450 points, no taxes and fees, and you're going to get some Delta Sky miles.
Awesome. So obviously that is a great deal and a really legitimate reason to consider using and consider getting the Amex Business Platinum. Now, to take this to the other end of the spectrum, let's look at a more expensive business class flight. So I also looked up a round trip from New York to Paris on a business class ticket, and we're seeing fares at around $6,700 round trip. Now, that's a bit on the high side for a typical business class ticket across the Atlantic, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. And so if you were using Pay with Points, that would be a whopping 669,000 points. And so even with your Amex rebate, you're still going to be at 334,500. So that's a really big number of points. And if you consider using Delta miles to book that ticket, you're going to pay 125,000 round trip, assuming you can find saver availability. And you would also potentially earn a lot of redeemable miles. Often the airlines give you a pretty big class of service bonus. And so when I was looking at test flights, it depends on which program you credit to and exactly which fare you're earning. But a lot of these business class flights are earning around 30,000 redeemable miles. So in this case, if you transferred points and booked with Delta, you pay $125,000 and maybe pay $150 to $200 in taxes and fees. And if you were booking this using the Amex Pay with Points, you're obviously paying a huge amount more than that. So in this case, it's just a really, really bad deal. And I think the key takeaway here is that there is a sweet spot. Obviously, if you're buying really cheap economy tickets, you're in great shape. You can get a big win there. And the other thing to keep in mind, it's obviously great to earn some redeemable miles. That's kind of an extra bonus. But if loyalty is important to you and earning status, that's another reason that the Pay with Points can help. But at the high end of the business class, you're really paying way, way too much in points. Assuming there's saver availability, you're much better off transferring to an airline partner. And I guess I would say sort of the sweet spot here is probably around $2,000 to $3,000 in business class. That's where you're going to see more or less a push between the two.
So to wrap stuff up, this could be an excellent benefit if you are consistently flying the same airline, you're booking economy fares for under $1,000, you book business class fares in the $1,800 to $3,000 range, or you really care about focusing your business on an airline to earn elite status, or you really want to channel your loyalty to one program.
The benefit's going to be a lot less useful if you tend to fly with lots of airlines, especially in economy, because remember, as AJ said before, it's restricted to the one airline you choose for economy tickets. So if you fly lots of airlines and book economy, this is not going to help you much. If you buy a lot of business class, obviously that's good because you can do it with any airline. The other really important thing that you want to consider is often if you book one-way airfare, which AJ and I do all the time, we don't really have good plans about when we're leaving places. So if you are in a position where you tend to move and stay in a location for a while and you're not sure when you're going to be returning, one-way airfare is tricky because almost all of the major zone-based programs charge you 50% of the round-trip cost in miles. And generally, paid tickets are much more expensive for a one-way than half of the cost of a round trip. So in general, I'd say, we typically see 65 to 80% of the round trip cost as the one-way paid ticket fare. So if you've got a $1,000 round trip, you might even pay as much as $800 on a one-way ticket. That's not a good opportunity to use the Pay with Points because you can get half price, assuming there's points tickets availability with reward points. Then you can transfer to one of the Amex partners and get the airfare probably quite a bit cheaper and more efficiently than you would with pay with points. So I think that's probably a pretty good place to leave it. It's definitely a benefit that could be very useful with the Business Platinum. And I think it's probably worth taking a second to just recap the rest of the benefits. We talked about the new changes, but again, there's a $450 annual fee for this card, and there are some other benefits besides the new ones that we talked about that help to soften the blow of that $450 fee.
So this card comes with a $100 global entry fee credit. So that's if it's not provided by another card, that would be valuable to you. The same thing with Priority Pass. You could get access to a lot of lounges. The Amex Platinum lounges, you get Delta Lounge access when you were flying Delta. You get Boingo Wi-Fi. $200 annual airline credit, which can be a little bit tricky to redeem, but it's a $200 credit nonetheless. And so as far as the benefits go, assuming you value the airline credit at $200 at face value, you're pretty much paying $250 for all of those other benefits that we just mentioned.
Yeah, and I'd say we're kind of in an interesting spot. So we've got the Amex personal card, so we don't have that nice 50% rebate on the membership, which is a little bit disappointing. But in evaluating the annual fee, so it's actually due right now. We've just had the annual fee bill, and so we've got maybe a month or so to decide whether we're going to keep the card. The one lounge access that's unique here, Delta is one that's not offered by other cards, but it's a little more limited since it's only when you're flying Delta. But the Amex Centurion lounges, this is the only way you're going to get access is with the Platinum card. And that can be a really good deal. I mean, we probably, got $100 worth of value when we were stuck in New York at the LaGuardia Lounge.
How many times have you been in the Centurion Lounge? I think I've been maybe 3 or 4 different times.
Yeah, I think I've been lucky. I think maybe like six or so. So, if that's something that you value, especially if you frequent the airports where there are Centurion lounges in the U.S., it's definitely worth considering hanging onto this card. So before we wrap this up, we've talked quite a bit about the benefits, but there's something really important to discuss about the new sign-up bonus with the Amex Business Platinum, and that is the dreaded Amex clawbacks. And basically what that means is that Amex is obviously giving away these 100,000 membership points because they want to keep you as a long-term customer. And so they're putting out a bunch of cash to acquire new users, new customers. And if you get caught doing some manufactured spend to meet that $15,000 spending requirement, it can come back to bite you. And so that's one thing that we wanted to talk about. There's a few things, and this is courtesy of Frequent Miler. We're going to have a link in the show notes. This is for safe signups. So the first one is you want to avoid gift card purchases. Now, that one I take a little bit of issue with. You just need to be careful, right? You don't want to be generating $5,000 or $10,000 worth of spend at an office supply store buying a bunch of Visa gift cards. If you don't have enough spend to make it, you really want to consider whether you sign up for this, because Amex is watching for irregular looking types of purchases. The second one, and this is even bigger, this is probably virtually an automatic clawback of your miles, is if you return items that you bought which counted towards your minimum spend. So at the very least, you need to wait till after the points post. If you buy a $4,000 MacBook computer and you return that, they're not going to be happy about that, and they're going to take the points back. So I think that's probably the biggest one.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess the bottom line is, only buy things that you actually are going to buy. Don't buy something with the plan to return it. The next one that's actually pretty important as well is being aware of the one time per lifetime rule. So you could actually get approved for this card to find out you want to get the bonus. So if you've gotten this bonus before, you are not eligible to get this bonus right now.
And then the last one is canceling your card early. And so the big thing here is you want to wait until a full year after signing up before considering closing your account. And financially, it really doesn't make any difference one way or another. You're not going to get the original fee back. So you pay the annual fee $450 up front. The really nice thing about this is, again, the airline credit is per calendar year. So if you sign up now, you can use $200 of the airline credit now, and $200 in 2017 means you get $400 towards the $400 and $50 annual fee. So you're almost even right there. And so the key takeaway here to avoid the clawback is wait until your account is up for renewal and then call to negotiate that annual fee. And at that point in time, you can decide based on the information, all the benefits that we've talked about. There may be some changes between now and next year. That's going to give you your decision about whether you want to keep the card. And you should be perfectly safe as far as your 100,000 point bonus if you wait a full year and decide the benefits aren't worth keeping the card.
good chance that you use your points before the next annual fee comes up also, right? I mean, it's not definitely ridiculous to burn 100,000 points within the first year.
Awesome. So we've got some great links. It took a lot of research to put this together. So hopefully you guys will find those valuable. And again, a reminder, show notes are at abroaders.com/platinum. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so much for being with us once again. We will see you next week, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Wherever you are, travel safe.
Cheers.
Hey, Broaders, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Eric or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.